The idea is to make the products less attractive to children.
So last week, we opened a giant can of vape-shaped worms. Say that 5 times fast. We touched on vaping and e-cigarettes, what they are and how they work.
This is an e-cigarette.
As well as nicotine addiction and why it has such a powerful hold on so many people. Today, we'll discuss what we know about the long-term health implications of these devices, as well as consider their relationship with modern society. By now, we already know that nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant that triggers the release of dopamine and other chemicals in the brain, leading to increased focus, productivity, and a sense of well-being. But as you might expect, quitting isn't just as simple as foregoing these benefits. Your body is a finely tuned mechanism that works tirelessly to maintain homeostasis. And once you introduce nicotine into your daily routine, your body gets used to the chemical changes that it triggers. Then your baseline for natural production of the associated chemicals lowers to compensate for the high amount that you are now unnaturally producing. As a result, when you do try to stop and miss the regular nicotine hit that your body has come to expect, your baseline, which is now lower than what it would be naturally, feels lacking.
That homeostatic mechanism in your brain and body that sets your level of mood and arousal, etc., does not know you're not bringing in nicotine.
Of course, Dr. Huberman has our back. He goes on to explain why.
So that 9 a.m. cigarette time or vape inhalation time no longer feels above baseline. It actually feels below baseline.
So you've literally trained the body to compensate for a nicotine-induced state of arousal by lowering its natural level of arousal. And what you're feeling, or as Dr. Huberman puts it,
what you're seeing is the lower amplitude of arousal that was there to offset the increase you were getting from vaping or smoking.
So if you've ever wondered why overall relapse rates are so high, 75% within the first week and 95% overall, the fact that
people don't expect to feel even worse than they did prior to ever smoking or vaping.
That might have something to do with it. Since now you feel like you need something just to feel normal. This is what craving is. And rest assured, I don't say this to discourage anyone, but to deepen our understanding of what occurs during the early stage of withdrawal.
And the beauty of understanding this is that if you can get through that first week, either by sheer grit or by other methods, healthy methods, I would hope,
then your chances of leaving smoking behind for good go up quite a bit. The healthy methods to which Dr. Huberman is referring are various activities that have been shown to increase dopamine naturally, such as exercise.
Let's walk, everybody. Here we go.
Positive social interaction.
You ready to walk? Yeah, I'm ready to walk. You guys ready?
Cold showers.
I am rotating like a rotisserie chicken so that I can get an even distribution of cold.
Hypnosis, and even other pharmacological agents.
2, 1, relax, way down, and sleep. Relax.
Because ultimately, you don't want to be dependent on something if it's hurting your health. Any addiction has physical effects on the body, and nicotine is no different. In general, nicotine can cause an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, flow of blood to the heart, and a narrowing of the arteries. Obviously, these pose more of a risk with prolonged use. So that's nicotine. But now that we are clear on what nicotine is and its effects on the body, we can start to understand the risk that dual usage as a transition for quitting smoking poses. If dual usage helps with the cigarette issue, but causes nicotine dependence to increase, how much is it really improving your overall health?
I know it's not good for me, but I've been smoking for 20 years, and this is the first time that I've ever gotten off smoking.
And although the data is inconclusive as to whether vaping as a quitting smoking transition strategy is effective, one thing is crystal clear. Using both, or dual usage, was definitely never meant to be a sustainable method. And not only for the risk of nicotine addiction, but for the physical effects too. According to a 2022 study in the American Heart Association's peer-reviewed journal Arteriosclerosis, Thrombosis, and Vascular Biology, conducted by Matthew Springer, dual use may actually be more harmful than either one alone. Though they have similar cardiovascular effects, both pose some risks that the other does not, making the combination of them even more dangerous. They also stated that the cardiovascular effects themselves may have more to do with airway irritation of a foreign substance in general, rather than the chemicals found in either the smoke or the aerosol. There is an inflammatory effect that happens in your lungs, which results in blood vessel function being disrupted when you inhale any foreign substance.
Those kids are taking in stimulants through their blood vessels all day long. In the lung.
The only thing that should be in your lungs is air.
What goes into your lungs very often stays in your lungs.
That's exactly right. Our lungs were designed to breathe air. And if you think about it, our body and our bodily systems work best when we don't overcomplicate or interrupt their natural functions or pollute their environment. Let them do what they're meant to do. That said, if you're going to use one or the other, vaping seems to have pretty appealing pros.
Don't know the long-term effects of it, but it seems better than smoking.
Vaping aerosol, which is essentially what you're doing when you use a vape, is significantly different from tobacco smoke. According to Health Canada, it produces less chemicals in general and a lesser amount of the potentially harmful ones. Public Health England did an experiment in 2018 where they put cotton balls in 3 bell jars. One pumped with the smoke from 300 cigarettes, the average smoker's monthly consumption, one drawing vapor from an e-cigarette for the same amount of time, and as a control, one with clear air to demonstrate not smoking. As you can see, what happened in the cigarette jar is not something you'd want happening in your body. Not when you could have your insides look like the vape jar, which is pretty clean in comparison. Unlike cigarettes, vaping products do not produce tar or carbon monoxide, which, as you can tell from the cotton ball experiment, is one of the major issues people have with cigarettes.
I mean, it just is so revolting. Look at this, that's just the inside of the jar.
However, vaping isn't harmless. It can contain harmful and potentially harmful substances, which include, aside from nicotine, heavy metals like lead, volatile organic compounds, and cancer-causing agents. And as I've said previously, you're still inhaling a foreign substance into your body, which may actually be the biggest issue. We have to take care of what we are putting into our bodies. This is especially true for young people who are still in the process of development. Crucially, nicotine has been shown to be harmful to their developing brain, which isn't considered fully grown until the age of 25. In particular, the parts of the brain such as the prefrontal cortex that control attention, learning, mood, and impulse control. As stated in the CDC, each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections, or synapses, are built between brain cells. Young people's brains build synapses faster than adult brains, and nicotine changes the way these synapses are formed. Also, using nicotine in adolescence may also increase risk for future addiction to other drugs. People talk about weed being a gateway drug, but what about nicotine? As we've alluded to earlier, nicotine addiction, like any addiction, can cause withdrawal symptoms when you try to stop using it. These can include irritability, restlessness, anxiety or depression, trouble sleeping, problems concentrating, and craving nicotine. Which, if you aren't already dependent or have never tried nicotine, could be reason enough not to go there. However, if you already are dependent, this may be a reason enough to continue. That is, to avoid withdrawal.
I feel like I'm at war in my body. My throat hurts, my head hurts, I'm craving it.
It's not fun, and for many, going through it doesn't seem worth it to stop. For young people who are already sensitive to the growing pains of puberty and maturity, nicotine can be a hazardous addition to the mix of emotions. Mental health is a prevalent issue in our society right now, especially in young people. According to the World Health Organization, 1 of 7 people aged 10 to 19 experience a mental disorder. For example, anxiety and depression are among the leading causes of illness among adolescents. Young people who are dealing with complex emotions and social pressure often feel stressed, and without a constructive way of dealing with it, will turn to quick fixes to help relieve themselves of some of it. This CDC article I cited earlier brings up several good points. Young people may turn to vaping to try to deal with stress or anxiety, creating a cycle of nicotine dependence. But nicotine addiction, having to maintain any addiction, and the withdrawal symptoms brought upon by quitting can be its own source of stress. The article states the most common reason youth give for continuing to use vapes is because they feel anxious, stressed, or depressed. In this cycle, the stress seems unavoidable. Realistically, what are the options? Either stress less now by numbing it out and suffer later, or suffer now. That's why it's so important to everyone, especially young people, to make a habit of taking care of themselves, their mental health, and their bodies as early as possible. Prevention is the best medicine. Unfortunately, try as you might to make unhealthy choices, educate yourself and others on the risks of nicotine, or any other risky behavior for that matter, modern society doesn't exactly do us many favors. We are bombarded with a metric ton of information by the news and on social media. Tempted to buy this or that, struggling to keep up with our bills and responsibilities. The list is endless. And for us adults with impressionable young people in our lives, there are so many factors outside of our control. School, peers, friends, etc. And when was the last time setting a hard rule, no nicotine in my house, really worked?
Tell me the truth or I'm gonna get your father. It wasn't a smoke, Mum. It was just a vape.
Let's take a second to breathe. I feel like the best any of us can really do is to try to set a positive example. When we come under stress, to ask ourselves, how can we remain grounded enough to choose the healthy option instead of reaching for a quick fix?
What flavour do you think's the best? Oh, I don't vape.
What? To reach for a creative outlet, engage in a physical activity, or lean on healthy social connections when we feel overwhelmed.
You don't vape?
Nope.
Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
How can we expect our youth to do the same if we cannot even model this type of behavior? Attempting to shift our fundamental behavioral patterns is very difficult, and the best approach will be different for all of us. But that doesn't make it any less important.
Oh, relax, bro. These aren't as bad as people think. They are. How, though? They've got fruit inside. Thought they'd just make them like they do, like with juice.
It's hard enough that in today's society, we are often swayed by outside influence. Young people who are only just learning about the reality of the world and still developing their ability to critically think can feel the pressures of the people around them to do certain things or act a certain way. Want to be cool? Come smoke with us.
Try it. Maybe you like it. Yeah, but try my flavour. It's better.
Friends vaping? I want to fit in, so maybe I'll try it too.
It seemed like the cool thing to do, so I was obviously enticed because I had seen other people doing it.
According to the CDC, that's actually the most common reason US middle and high school students give when asked why they initially started vaping. Unfortunately, this peer pressure extends far beyond the immediate social circle. In the story of vaping, we must consider the power and intention of advertisers. These vaping companies, some of which are owned by or in partnership with tobacco companies that have been around for centuries and have experienced the rise of cigarettes, know that if they can hook you young, they've got lifelong customers. So they're going straight to the kids.
Marketing of e-cigarettes in stores has helped make them the most popular tobacco products among teens and young adults.
Isn't that like horrifying? It almost seems to suggest the health of the young people targeted by vape advertising is less important than the profits the companies stand to make.
The truth is that the overwhelming majority of people who smoke began their tobacco use as teenagers.
As mentioned by Dr. Healton, this is an unfortunate reality and makes me wonder how many of these people were affected by targeted marketing campaigns. A 2020 article written by Kristen Jones and Gary Saltzman in the Missouri Journal of Medicine brings up interesting points of how they are successfully marketing to a younger generation, with advertisements being widely distributed on social media. 78% of middle schoolers and high schoolers from 2014 to 2016 have been exposed to at least one ad. The devices are made to look like pens, inhalers, USB sticks, cell phone cases, or even just an attachable part of your backpack.
Some vapes even look just like school supplies.
And kids are like getting into it too easily, and like they're seeing the ads and then it's attracting them.
I mean, this one is just...
Sophia looks like she's just wearing a regular hoodie, but underneath, a vaping device.
Vape holes in a hoodie? Come on now. Not to mention, vape pods come in fun packaging and flavors. No surprise that these enticing flavors play a factor in kids trying vapes. According to another article from the American Heart Association, more than 80% of teen users say their first e-cigarette product was flavored. Bro, you have to try Cherry Bomb.
Watermelon is still goated. Bro, watermelon just tastes like piss. How do you know what piss tastes like? Because I had it one time.
The advertisements must be working too, because young people definitely seem to be vaping. A lot.
There's been a huge surge of high schoolers using e-cigarettes or vaping.
900% increase over a 5-year period.
900%, bro? Come again. According to a study performed by the National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, as of 2014, young adults aged 18 to 24 were vaping more than adults 25 and up. It makes sense why it is being considered a public health concern among youth and young adults. So, according to the data, it doesn't seem like it's being used to help lifelong smokers quit, as much as it is being used by teens and young adults, who then carry the habit into adulthood. That said, even if the advertisers are targeting the youth, they would say they are just doing their job by making it look appealing. Technically, they are. So whose responsibility is it? We still have the ability to make our own decisions, and hopefully they will be informed decisions. However, as stated in a Johns Hopkins Medicine article written by Michael Blaha, one of the major reasons teens use vapes is because they believe it is less harmful than smoking, which, as we've discussed, really isn't that simple. It isn't the healthy alternative that it's made out to be. It's just an alternative with its own risks. Blaha mentions other factors that may play a part in their appeal to young people, aside from tactics used by advertising agencies. These are just objective benefits of vaping in relation to smoking.
One little puff's not gonna kill you, lad.
Firstly, per use, it's cheaper.
Do either of you want to make an easy $40 to buy me a Juul? I'll give you $60, you keep the change.
And there's no easier way to sell someone on something than by saying you'll have to spend less on it. Also, the lack of actual smoke is just cool. Smoking without smoking. No smoke smell, and if it does smell, it smells like watermelon mint. You could smoke practically anywhere, bro.
Well, you're pretty weird, eh? Yeah, that's why I'm gonna start vaping so I can fit in.
Of course, the vaping rates are going to vary depending on geographic locations and the cultures in them. However, just to give you an example of my own province, Ontario, Dr. Robert Schwartz, director of the U of T Collaborative Specialization in Public Health Policy, has studied this issue and concluded.
After 1 year, 40% of youth and young adults who weren't vaping picked up the habit.
Another reputable source, the Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey, reports that as of 2021, 15% of students grades 9 through 12 were vaping. CDC reports are similar.
It shows the percent of high school students who use e-cigarettes. In 2018, it was over 20%.
Think of any high school. That's approximately 1/7 of the school. And I say students because not only are teens vaping in general, but students are literally vaping in class.
Giving kids new ways to hide their vaping habits anywhere they go.
And as I mentioned earlier, vapes are being produced to look like all sorts of school equipment.
It just looks like literally a USB in your computer, and everyone would just charge them openly.
So yes, literally hiding in plain sight.
They had their hands kind of up like this, and there was a blue light coming from between their hands.
And kids openly admit to this.
You could vape in any class. You just like this, hold it in for like 2 seconds and just under the desk.
Or even if they aren't being completely savage by smoking in class, they'll find another way.
Can I go to the restroom? Sure.
Blueberry gum. I got this shit, but make sure all these out. Good. Hey, don't touch it. Can you touch it with man? Hey, don't talk to the
But this isn't limited to young people in schools. This is one of the major factors that makes vaping so convenient for people. If there is no smoke, smoke-free zones become vape-friendly zones. With cigarettes, people either have to go outside or to a designated smoking areas to smoke. Now they're able to smoke whenever and wherever. And again, even in places that ban vaping, many people still vape and just try to hide the vape cloud. Unless you're watching everyone at all times in any given venue, it's difficult to tell if someone has been vaping.
Easy?
There's no vaping out here.
No vaping? Yeah, not at this moment. We do one more?
He does cool tricks. One more. Me and him at the same time.
Let's suppose we take money out of the equation for a second. People do things that are convenient. If it's a hassle, we have to really want to do it. And for smoking, whether you're driven by habit or addiction or just wanting to partake in the casual cigarette, if you have to go outside to smoke, you'll probably smoke less frequently than you would if you could smoke inside, at school, at your job, or in the bathroom. I'm not saying that having to go outside would make people quit smoking, but rather that the inconvenience of it would make the idea of all-day chain smoking less possible. That is, if they want to participate in society.
Hospital patients forced out onto the street. Workers braving heat waves, rain and cold just to take a puff. They've become outcasts in a country that is turning a big thumbs down on smoking.
Smoking bans in enclosed public spaces were enforced right around the turn of the century. These smoke-free spaces are there to help protect non-smokers from secondhand smoke, as well as help smokers quit. Since you could literally vape endlessly without consequence in these zones, we are faced with what is fast becoming a recurring theme. Even if vapes were healthier, if the frequency increases, is it really a healthier trade-off? Here's something else to consider. Vapes are consumed on a hit-by-hit basis, whereas cigarettes burn and therefore are typically consumed in one sitting. This fact may help spread the vape intake out throughout the day, and could also contribute to a larger overall intake of nicotine. According to the CDC, as well as many other online sources, 1 Juul pod is comparable in nicotine levels to a pack of cigarettes. And even if you're not using Juul, this will give you a rough estimate. It's tough to say with confidence how much people actually vape every day. I scoured vape forums, peer-reviewed articles, and whatnot, but the consensus is that patterns differ and vapes come in all different strengths and concentrations and sizes. A lot of scientific studies will just mention if the participant vapes or not how much, but due to the all-important convenience factors, as we previously discussed, I'd wager that it is not uncommon for regular vapors to be vaping what would amount to a pack of regular cigarettes, if not more. The only similarity between all vapors is that they aren't producing smoke, only vapor. Which at the very least means that vaping has effectively solved the secondhand smoke issue, right? Well, some medical sources such as the American Thoracic Society would say it is still potentially harmful. That second and third hand smoke and vaping aerosols contain toxic and cancer-causing chemicals that can be breathed in and can go into the body through the skin. So while the aerosol isn't completely risk-free, it does not produce side stream smoke, which is the result of a cigarette burning in between puffs. And since up to 85% of secondhand cigarette smoke comes from side stream smoke, a vape that allows for the direction of stream of secondhand aerosol to be controlled by the user is very helpful in this area. With another point in the convenience column, it's no surprise when I stumbled across several anecdotal accounts of people claiming to vape. Thanks, Reddit. You may not be a scientific journal, but you are a gold mine for anecdotal information.
I had one on me every single day, like I was never without one.
And in my experience, some people may not feel comfortable admitting things like this in more formal studies and surveys. Internet anonymity affords some of us the comfort necessary to broach sensitive topics honestly. And with the negative health effects of smoking so well known, and vaping labeled publicly as an epidemic, there is a stigma associated with these behaviors. Ultimately, it behooves us to remember that anyone who chooses to reach for a vape or e-cigarette is doing so in an attempt to feel good, even if only subconsciously. And we gain nothing by approaching these topics from a place of judgment. A little empathy goes a long way. Any activity that really can make you feel good, be more productive, that is both easy to access and associated with high social pressure and ubiquitous advertising is likely to attract many users. Vaping is perfectly positioned to draw us in and to keep us within its orbit. But hopefully, with the accumulation of knowledge and a deepening of our understanding comes a feeling of empowerment. Thus, we can begin to take back control of our lives from the many quick fixes that promise fleeting satisfaction. Because ultimately, the responsibility to change one's life falls on the individual. What frustrates me as a medical professional is the subtext of a statement like that. Sure, it's your responsibility, but in the context of vaping, and many other addictions for that matter, the world we live in isn't doing you any favors. Have you ever considered how social media has influenced vaping and vape addiction? No pun intended. The story behind Juul will help us understand their relationship, and the Netflix documentary on the topic is very informative to that end.
It's this little thing, and it's called
Juul. Juul looks more like a flash drive or computer device.
Well worth the watch, but don't worry, I'll give you the necessary backstory here. Juul founders James Monsees and Adam Bowman were tech guys from Stanford who thought they could help the global health problem of smoking. Remember this from last week's video?
Innovation could address all of the problems associated with smoking.
And our goal, our mission, is to eliminate combustible cigarettes.
And in the beginning, they were adamant about not being associated with big tobacco. They were saving lives, not hurting them. They sought to create a product that could truly circumvent smoking. Social, ritualistic, addictive, but less dangerous, simple, and easy to use. Once they'd effectively incorporated all of these elements into their product, there was suddenly pressure from the board of investors to put it out so they could...
When it doesn't make profit, it's not going to last long. Public health first, but you can't have public health if nobody buys the product.
Make money. Right. I guess this is what happens when good intentions are diluted by the world of big business and tech. Suddenly, Juul enlisted an expert marketing team to launch the product. The vibe? Urban cool, baby.
Like, look under the hood of advertising, what is it all really about, right? Desirability is like imperative if you're launching something, right?
The goal was to make Juul seem luxurious, sophisticated, and sexy. Like, it's for the cool kids, you know what I'm saying? They were selling a lifestyle. And you know what? It worked.
It's someone who's good looking, handsome, give him anything, it's gonna work. But I think it definitely works.
This hashtag vaporized campaign specifically targeted the millennials, the next generation of nicotine users.
Juul throws a party, invites a bunch of people with a lot of followers on Instagram, gives them Juuls, and then gives them cool things to take pictures in front of.
Nothing surprising here. Then, of course, the millennial, caught up in the trend, basically does the advertising for them.
Juul was trying to associate itself with like these young, internet savvy, cool kids, it girls and it boys, to ride that boom in influencer marketing.
Now, this campaign did get backlash from the public, claiming that it glamorized something potentially harmful. It looked too similar to the old cigarette commercials that big tobacco used for people not to notice. Have I seen this before? Sure, Juul's campaign got some pushback, but not before they introduced people to the product. And once you're hooked, you're freaking hooked. Following these campaigns, things spiraled downwards for Juul. The FDA was watching more closely, retailers were hesitant to stock the product, and Juul had manufacturing issues. All of these issues ultimately led to the board of investors voting to demote then CEO and co-founder James Monsees. And for a time, Juul became a company run by the board itself, interested obviously in expansion and profit, not necessarily the well-being of the customer. How public concern led to a situation where the person most concerned with the public's well-being was demoted, leaving the company in the hands of investors, encapsulates the point I hope to illustrate here. Anyone attempting to quit nicotine is up against a lot. Ultimately, Juul improved on their design, cleaned up their image, and assumed the position of a cool piece of technology offering a healthier alternative to smoking. Hype surrounding Juul started spreading via word of mouth, influencers over social media and around college campuses. Even celebrities started using it.
You want to hit my vape pen?
And if celebs were using it, everyone would take notice.
It was just a trend, basically. Like, if you don't do it, then you're not very much liked.
This is what I want to highlight here. The effect of social media and just media in general, and the power of influence. Now, when it comes to being influenced, the likelihood of being swayed to do something you'd otherwise not do is increased when you're unsure of who you are. Following the trend, that is for everyone, but especially in demographics like teens. But a trend that traps you in a very powerful addiction is hardly just a trend. It's quite possibly an entry point into lifelong addiction. And, if I might be so bold, is a business that might facilitate an addiction of such magnitude just a business? Not to mention the added layer of youth-targeted ads.
When I started Juuling, I didn't really understand that there was like nicotine in Juuls.
Oh, right. To what degree is the target demographic even aware of what's happening?
Try this, there's no nicotine in it. And they just gave it to me, and I tried it, and I was like, eh.
Or of the chemicals they're ingesting.
It happens so quickly almost too, you don't even realize you're addicted at that point. You're like, wait,
I don't feel good, and then you hit it and you feel better.
Or the science of addiction. When optimal customer acquisition is very literally introducing a young person to a chemical that puts their entire physiology in a chokehold, what do we as a society do? What can parents do? Our youth deal with a lot of social pressure as is, and are still in the process of maturing. And then add on the fact that their relationship with social media can stress them out. In the Netflix documentary, Taylor Lorenz, a tech reporter of the Washington Post, describes it well.
They can't remember a time before social media. Everything is unavoidable. You're pressured to post, to live this life online. You're pressured to use products that might be slowly killing you.
Growing up with that pressure is overwhelming, but they don't know any different.
And that's really depressing and exhausting. At least you can just go on Instagram and scroll and have a break and just kind of forget about your problems.
And I'm very skeptical about the level of conscious awareness in the process.
Taking a hit of Juul, it's like getting a like on social media. It's that rush of energy or that like quick relief where you feel good for an instant.
With that comparison in mind, Juul is tailor-made for teens. Lorenz is spot on in saying that it's this highly addictive product colliding with a generation of kids that have been marinating in highly addictive technology.
Everyone vapes these days. Yeah, I've noticed. It's kind of sad, to be honest.
And once everyone is doing it, there is a snowball effect, as this article in the Journal of Thoracic Disease points out. The increasing social acceptance of using e-cigarettes due to the positive portrayal in the social media and the ease of obtaining these devices by people of all ages are, in large part, responsible for the surging use of these products. Minors were able to order e-cigarettes successfully online and have the devices, e-liquids, and flavors delivered 93.7% of the time. Now, for those of you who've seen the full Netflix documentary, you'll know social media and public perception also played a major role in the downfall of Juul. But obviously not before vaping had been successfully introduced to the young people of the world. For the purposes of today's lesson, we've seen enough. Whether it be Juul or another company, e-cigarettes, vaping, and nicotine addiction are still on the rise. And not just in people who use it to quit smoking, but in many younger first-time users. And if you happen to be a first-time user to my channel watching this video, does it frustrate you to know that you may have been targeted by carefully coordinated advertisements, or that your addiction is contributing to the wealth of e-cigarette and vape companies competing for market shares of the now $25+ billion global vape industry? Is a company health focused if many of their customers are first-time nicotine users? That is to say, people who never needed a smoking cessation device in the first place? These are big questions with big answers, and if any of them incite anger, perhaps that anger might be channeled to steel one's resolve long enough to power through that initial withdrawal period. Or not. If you've seen many of my other videos, you'll know this to be a recurring theme. Health is a complex interplay between you and many other factors, including society and big business. And I don't intend to formulate an answer for you today. My hope is to help you think critically about your health and well-being and provide you with foundational information upon which you might formulate your own opinion. And given that vaping is a relatively new phenomenon, we do not yet have enough data to determine what a 60-year-old person who has been vaping for the last 45 years will look like, or whether they'll even survive. Only time will tell. All right, guys, we've talked about a lot today. I'm glad you all joined me. It was a pretty serious discussion, but I hope you guys still had fun. I really enjoyed researching this subject, and if you want me to do more videos like this, leave a like. And don't forget to follow my gym, Human 2.0 Fitness, for free right here on YouTube, where we post content that helps you move better and prevent injury. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up to feed the algorithm. And if you didn't, be sure to let me know why in the comment section down below. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.